my website. Give me just 1 second and I'll get started. Find. All right, I just set it up on my website. Let me just make sure that that is working, and then I will go ahead and get started. I'm hoping to avoid some issues yesterday with my computer going incredibly slow. Hopefully I will avoid those today. All right. So if you are joining me for the first time, have not seen me do this before, I'm recording lessons for a course called Going Deeper with R. The course will be out next month, and you're watching a live stream of me recording it. It's really about the behind the scenes look. So I'm going to spend a decent chunk of the time obviously recording, but then also I will need to go back, make tweaks, change some of the materials, etc. One of the challenges of online education is you want everything to be just right because people are not there in person to ask you questions live. So yeah, that's why you'll see me do this a lot. So yesterday I started recording the data visualization section. Here, I'll just make this full screen. Just make sure I'm recording. Yep. So I talked about kind of how this section of the course is structured around the idea of best practices in data visualization and how we can apply those to our own visualizations in R. And I'm using this example from John Byrne Murdoch of the Financial Times, who has produced a now super well-known visualization about the spread of coronavirus. And from this, I kind of bring out 4 main themes that I think are really useful to use. So I talked about highlighting, how this chart highlights the findings, how it declutters. You can see it shows a lot of information, but it's quite spare. How it explains things really well using titles, annotations, etc. And then how they make it sparkle. In other words, not make it just kind of default and plain. And they do that. It's using a custom theme. It's using colors and fonts and everything that match the Financial Times branding. Okay, so then we went through, I gave another example of why you need to have your data in tidy format, which was something that I covered in a previous section of the course. But I thought it'd be really useful to give another example here. So we talked about why we can't plot data that's in this untidy format. And then we tidied it and then plotted it and made a nice small multiples graph. Then we talked about how you can actually pipe data into ggplot. We made some graphs. And then last thing we talked about in the kind of highlight section was instead of just plotting and having it display in the order, the default order, which when I made a bar chart here is just alphabetical, descending alphabetical order. Instead, we reordered to show it by the highest percentage of students at any school, and this is in Portland, Oregon, where I'm located. Highest percentage of students who are in third grade who are proficient in state standardized math tests. And I showed a couple ways to do that. All right, so today I am going to be beginning by talking about line charts. So in my Fundamentals of R course, I talk about making histograms, bar charts, and scatter plots. This course, I'm focusing on line charts. And it's not so much necessarily that I think, you need to be taught every single type of geom within ggplot. But there are some particularities to them. And so I'm going to actually demonstrate a bit of that with line charts. Before I get started, if you have any questions, comments, feedback, please feel free to put it on Twitch, Twitter, or YouTube. I have a window open. If you see me looking on my other screen, I have a window open there where I can see all of your comments, and I love interacting with folks. If you are watching and want to share who you are, where you're from, I always enjoy seeing that. All right, let me just kind of make sure I know what's coming up in this. Right, so I'm going to show line charts and excuse me. One kind of teaching technique that I like to use, and I do it here, is I intentionally make something go wrong in order to demonstrate what needs to be done to make something go right. And I think that's effective. I used to be in elementary. I used to teach second grade, and I do that all the time. Like I teach students how to read, and I'd intentionally read things wrong, which forced them then to think about, okay, what was wrong about that? What can he do? Or what did he do that was wrong? And how can I, the student, do that correctly? So when I introduce geom here, what I want to show is kind of change from in overall proficiency rates from 2017 to 2018. But I'm going to just use geom, so I'm not setting the group aesthetic here. And so what's going to happen then is geom uses its best guess, and so it is selecting the year as the group aesthetic. So you can see it's connecting all of the all of the schools in 2017, 2018, and all the schools in 2018, 2019. Give me just 1 second. You know what? I'm actually just going to go back. Give me just 1 second. So I kind of debated about this last time, and I don't actually have any. Typically, I like to do it kind of like a my turn where I demonstrate something in RStudio, and then I do a your turn. I almost wonder if I should do this. I don't really want to go back and do the whole kind of German speakers example. I think what I might do is actually just make in the kind of sample project that I have. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna make a new R Markdown document on 3rd grade math proficiency report. Actually, I shouldn't even make it yet. So I'm going to go back actually and record just a tiny section from the last lesson. That I'm then going to edit into what I recorded last time. All right, give me 1 second. Okay. So I'm going to actually now take this code that I have developed and I'm going to put it into an R Markdown document because that's what you're going to do as well. So let me go ahead first and I'll just copy this. I'm going to flip over to R Markdown here and I'm just going to begin by starting a new R Markdown file. And I'll call this 3rd grade math proficiency report. I'll just keep it as HTML for now. We can talk about changing that later. So first thing I'm going to do, because I really don't want to lose anything, so I'll just hit save and I'll call this, just call the file, whoops, 3rd grade math proficiency report. Okay. Almost always what I do first is I just copy or I just delete that. I might actually go up here because this is, I'm imagining this as a report that I would share with non-technical stakeholders. I don't need to show my code. I want to set include, so in other words, the results of my code chunks to be true. Any warning I don't want to display, and any message I don't want to display. That's kind of my typical initial setup code chunk. Just going to add a code chunk where I'll load my packages. I think I'll just do tidyverse, and I think that's all I need to do. You could do these all in one code chunk, and the setup code chunk is just kind of how I'm doing it. So let me first read in my data. So 3rd grade math proficiency, and I'm going to read it in with RDS data. Let me actually just get the name of the data. So just called 3rd grade math proficiency.rds. Oh, could not find that. That's because I have not run that code chunk. So I hit that button to run everything down to that point. Now I rerun that. I could either open up here. I actually realize also if you control or command click on the name of a data frame, it'll open it up. Okay, I got it there. Awesome. And now I literally just pasted that in from my slide. So now I could show that. Oh, that doesn't look quite right, does it? Because everything goes to 1. What is going on here? I'm a little bit unclear what. Oh, well. That. School. That doesn't make any sense to me as to why it's displaying like that. Let me just run those couple lines. can see I have % proficient. It does have little lines there, which implies maybe it's showing 2 years, but it shouldn't be because I'm filtering here. Do I have, oh, I have. Huh, weird actually. Look at my data. I have 2 for each one, each school, like bridal mile, I have, I've got 2 years, or 2 observations per year. So let me actually go back to my data cleaning file. I'm going to restart my session. I'm just going to run everything down to this point where I'm creating the 3rd grade math proficiency data frame. Let me just make sure that it, oh, okay, weird. I actually have 2 per school. It looks like, ooh, I think I know what I did. Yeah. So I think I forgot to do filter proficiency. I only want to keep those who say that they're proficient. Yeah. All right, let me try this. And now I should just have, yeah, 1 per school. Okay. Yeah, now I got it. That is important. I'm going to rewrite that. Okay, now I'm going to close this. All right, let me go back. I'm going to restart my session. And now I'll edit this back together. Yeah, I'm going to go back to the point where I'm reading in my data. All right, let me read in my data. I'll run this code chunk. Oh, could not find function, read RDS. Okay, I need to run this code chunk first. And actually, I'll just hit this button to run everything down to that point. So I'll run that, and then I'll run this code chunk. Now I have 3rd grade math proficiency here. You can also actually open it by hitting Control click on Windows, Command click on Mac. And now I've got each school. Let me just sort it by school real quick. Yeah, perfect. Okay, now I'm going to add a new code chunk. And I'm copying in the code from my slide. So if I run this now, you can see I have the reordered bar chart that shows in order from the school with the highest level of proficiency down to the lowest. Okay. Let me flip back here. Because I also demonstrated doing it in this way, using this mutate and FCT reorder. So just if I copy that in here and just kind of demonstrate this in another code chunk, I can run that, and you can see I get the same thing here. Okay. All right, let me stop. Oh, of course, I forgot to record that. That's fine. I can make it a lot smoother. All right, let me hit record. You know what? I should actually just close that, delete that whole document. Okay, record this one more time, hopefully just one more time. Let me actually demonstrate this as well in RStudio. So I'm going to exit this, and I've got RStudio open here. I'm going to make a new R Markdown document, and I'll just call this third grade math proficiency report. Just keep it as HTML for now. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to save it. Want to make sure I don't lose anything. So third grade math proficiency report. Delete all the default content. First thing I'll do, I'll come back and change my code chunk options, my default code chunk options in a bit. But for right now, let me just begin by loading packages. So I'll do library tidyverse and I'll run that line. And now I'm going to make a new code chunk, and I'm going to read in the data that I worked on last time in the last section in the data cleaning file. So I'm going to use now the read_RDS function. And that only works because I ran the library tidyverse line. If I don't run that line, it'll give me an error. So this, I save my file in data third grade math proficiency c.rds, run that, and I have it here. I could also just open it there. And I did that, just to be clear, by hitting Control click on Windows or Command click for me because I'm on a Mac. If you do that in the name of an existing data frame, it'll just pop it up in the viewer, which is handy. All right, now I just want to make that reordered bar chart. So let me flip back here. I'll just copy my code here, paste it in, and you can see I just hit Command Enter to run that code chunk. And there we go. That's my plot. All right. So now that I've showed how this works, let me copy this into our Markdown and show how it works in our Markdown. Just copy my code. Run that. And I've got my reordered bar chart. Okay. All right, I'm going to stop there. Let me stop the recording. Let me save that. Let me hit record again. And now I will actually talk about line charts. Let's see. Okay. All right. Sorry, I just need to start recording. Oh, I did. Okay. Let's talk now about a new type of chart, new at least in terms of what you made if you took my fundamentals of R course. Line charts have a separate geom, which is geom line. There are some particularities about this geom which we'll demonstrate. So let's say we want to demonstrate which schools in Portland School District are showing progress from 2017 to 2018 in terms of the percentage of students who are proficient in math. Okay, we could do that. Now I'm just filtering to include Portland. I'm not filtering to only include 2018, 2019, right? Because if we're using a line chart, which is really effective for showing change over time, I want to have both years of data. Now I could do ggplot, and I'm setting my aesthetics. I'll put on the X, I'll put the year. So 2017, 18 will come first, then 2018, 2019. And on my Y, I'm going to have percent proficient, okay? Which will mean that the schools with higher proficiency rates will show up higher on my y-axis, obviously. And then I'm just going to add, like I said, geom_line. Let me see what this gives us. It gives us, interestingly, a straight line. And let me actually take this for a second and just flip over. I'm going to copy this. Let me flip over to the R Markdown document I've been working in. And just run it right here. Interestingly, what is actually going on is that with geom_line, we have to add a special aesthetic to tell ggplot which points to connect, or which observations to connect. It doesn't necessarily know. So this looks like a straight line, right? Let me add a geom to show you something. So if I add geom point, so what that's going to do is it's going to put a point at every place where there is an observation for a school. So let me run that. So you can see all those points. So that geom_line, what we can see, what it's doing is it's connecting every point for each year. It doesn't know, for example, that no, we don't want to connect all of those points. We actually want to connect the points for the schools, right? So we have to add something special to our aesthetics. So let me show you. We add group to our aesthetics, and that tells geom_line, hey, these are the things that I want to connect. So when I add that, let's see what we get. A little bit of a mess, but you can see it's more in line with what we're expecting, right? Like it connects, I assume this is one school here that connects to the same school here, and they've had quite a drop, correct? Sorry, just thinking. Let me flip back to our Markdown and show the same thing. So I'll get rid of geom point. Actually, let me just comment it out for now. And now I'm going to add here group equals school. Now when I run this, I get what I had before. But you can also see if I uncomment geom point and I run this, you can see each point is now being connected, each point representing that school, right? And you can see it now kind of, why did I put this in here? I'm a bit unclear why I put that in there. Let me... delete that slide, reknit that. All right. refresh this. All right. So for your turn, I want you to make a line chart that shows the growth in the Hispanic/Latino population in school districts from 2017-2018 to 2018-2019. You're going to need to pipe in your data, and then you're going to need to make a line chart in the way that we demonstrated. Okay, let me minimize that. Close those, restart my session. Oregon Schools Diversity Report, I'll open this up. Okay. All right, back in the report that you've been working on. I'm going to make a new code chunk, and I'll start with enrollment by race ethnicity. Now I want to filter. I'm going to keep only, you know what, I'm just going to copy this line. So let's see. Run that. Sorry, I completely messed that up. Let me start that over. All right, so we're back in the R Markdown report that we created last time. I'm going to make a new code chunk, and I'll start with enrollment by race ethnicity. So now I'm going to filter so that race ethnicity equals only interested in Hispanic Latino population. Let me just take a look back at here. Yep. So I'm only going to show those. All right. So I've got that. Now I can pipe this into ggplot. I don't need to put the data because the data is what's piped in. So AES. So on my X, I'm going to put year. And on my Y, I will put % of total at school. And now I could do geom line. I ran into that same issue. So I'm going to need to do group equals, and I have to set the group. And again, it's going to be, wait, sorry, not school. It'll be district. Now you can see I'm showing the growth in all districts in Oregon. And you can see there are a lot. We're experiencing what's known as overplotting here, where you can't actually really see what's going on. We'll deal with that shortly. But we have made our first line chart. All right, folks, I'm just stopping the recording, starting it again. Okay, minimize this. So in this lesson, I'm now going to show kind of how to use color to highlight this. I'm going to stop for just a second. My nearly 4-year-old twins are coming downstairs, about to head outside. So I'm going to give them just a second to head outside. If you're watching and are open to telling me, I'd love to know who you are or where you're watching from. Hello, Very. I hope I'm saying your name correct. Thanks for joining. Curious where you're joining from. So Very, I'm talking about data visualization today. I'm not sure if you've joined me in the past, but I'm recording lessons for a course, and I'm demonstrating. Well, I just did the basics of kind of making a line chart, and now I'm going to show about how you can kind of use color to highlight your findings. That'll be the next lesson. All right, I think they went out. Okay, cool. You know what, I actually think, hold on one second, I'm gonna, so here actually, I think when I talk about using color to highlight findings, here's actually where I think the displaying the Financial Times chart again would actually be helpful. So let me refresh this. Okay. All right, just make sure I'm recording. Yep. The next thing we're going to do to improve our plot is we're going to use color to highlight findings. taking a look back at this plot from the Financial Times, look at how John Byrne Murdoch uses color in a really effective way. He, first of all, doesn't highlight every single line, right? Notice that there are some lines down here, some kind of grayed out, grayish brown lines that are not highlighted. He's just highlighting a few countries that were most relevant at this point in time, right? Like he's highlighting Iran, Italy, South Korea, Japan, Singapore, Hong Kong, US, and UK, right? And he's using colors to highlight the findings. Let's talk about how to do this in our plot. And actually, I think what I want to do here is then display again I think now I want to display again the chart that we made last time, which did not use color in any way. All right, I'm going to knit that again. It's going really slow again. I thought I set up caching last time. Not quite sure why it's taking so long. Vera, you're asking about bar chart races in R. I actually recall seeing a package, I think. I could be wrong. Oh, here's, well. There's a link to some code, Very, that creates a bar chart race. All right, I'm going to go back. Let me refresh this and make sure I have, yeah, okay, perfect. All right. In contrast to this plot from the Financial Times, our plot that we made uses no color at all, right? Like every single school here is just shown in that kind of, that black, right? And everything looks the same. So let's think about how we can use color to highlight findings. One way you might do this is you might look for some schools or a single school, which is what I'll do, that has shown a lot of growth from 2017 to 2018. Just a second. I'm actually just wondering if I should show how to identify that school. thing is it's a bit complicated, and I want people to focus on the main idea, which is about highlighting using color. You know, I think I will show it because I can show a relatively quick way of doing it. So let's think about how we could identify, first of all, which school has shown a lot of growth from 2017-2018 to 2018-2019. Let me flip over to RStudio. I've got my data up here. I could just eyeball it if I wanted to for now. If I want to be a little bit more systematic, I could do this. I could do third grade math proficiency. And let me actually calculate the growth from 2017, 2018 to 2019. Number of different ways that you could do this. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to use pivot wider. And I will do ID calls. So I'm going to pivot. So right now we just have percent proficient in a single, actually, hold on. I can't decide if pivoting wider or using mutate with lag would be more interesting, or not interesting, simpler. Let me just do it with lag and see. So growth equals wait, I think I need to, you know what, no, I'm not even going to do it. I'm just going to do it by pivoting wider. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pivot wider here. I'm going to make this percent proficient that shows it for all years in the single column. I'm going to put that in 2 columns, and then I'm just going to calculate the difference between the two. So I'll do pivot wider, and I need to do ID calls equals school. And then I need to do names from equals year. Values from equals percent proficient. So if I run that, okay, so first of all, it's telling me, because there are additional columns here when I did that, it's giving me not the output that I was thinking about. So let me do it by just selecting first the variables that I need. So I'll select school, year, and percent proficient. So now I only have those variables. That did not do what I expected it to do. Hold on one second. Oh, it's because they're I think there are schools with the same name. Let me just try this before. Yeah. All right, let me start that over. So if I want to be systematic about this, I could reshape my data in order to calculate the difference between 2018, 2019, and 2017, 2018. Because I know I'm only looking at Portland schools, I'm going to just copy that. And now I'm going to pivot wider. So I can get, right now I have percent proficient in a single column and year in its own column as well, but I actually want to get year in 2 columns. So for that, I'm going to use pivot wider. So ID calls equals, and I'm going to need to get school and school ID. The reason is if I just do school, there might be schools that have the same exact name, even if they're in different school districts. Like here, for example, you can see there's an Adams Elementary in Corvallis, as well as in Eugene. So doing both of those will get me what I need. Now, names from equals year, right? Like I want to have a 2017-2018 column and a 2017, 2018, and 2018-2019. And then values from equals percent proficient. Let me run this, and you can see now I've got school, school ID, and then the 2017-2018 data and 2018-2019. Okay. So now what I could do is I could do mutate, and I'm going to make a new variable called growth equals. Now, these variable names are not, I can't use them on their own. Like if I just type 2018, 2019 minus 2017, 2018, watch what happens. Oh, that actually did work. Although, no, that's not giving me what I want. It's doing something where it's that growth is not, it's actually doing like 2018 minus 2019 minus 2017 minus 2018. I want these as variable names. So because they're not, because they start with a number, I need to put them in backticks like that. So now you can see I have growth. And if I want to just eyeball it, I could do also like arrange growth. And actually, sorry, that's showing me the schools that have the lowest growth. In other words, they are declining. So let me add my descending there. And now I can see I have, okay, Vestal Elementary School shown a lot of growth between 2017, 2018 and 2018, 2019. All right, flipping back here, what I could do now is I can make a new data frame that will then add on to this visualization to highlight Vestal Elementary School. The way I do this is I simply create a new data frame called, in this case, Highlight School. And I start with 3rd grade math proficiency, but then I just filter so that school equals Vestal Elementary School. So if I actually show you what that looks like, it's got school, school ID, district, and it's just got the data, percent proficient, year, for that single school. Now what I can do is I add this code. So let me actually just copy this into, oops, exit this, go down here. So let me talk about what I'm doing here. First thing I'm doing, I'm just assigning a value to these two variables. So I'm calling RRU orange this color. That's just a hex code that I use for my branding for R for the rest of us. And then I have an RRU gray, and I'm going to actually use these. So just as a reminder, when I had it before, it looked like that. Okay. So in other words, this was not even being run. In order to highlight, we're going to want to do a couple things. Let me actually even flip back here. So looking at this, what John Byrne Murdoch does, not only does he use color for a few lines, but all of the other lines he grays out so we're not focusing on them. Okay? Let me flip back here. Let me erase this. And let me take this line by line. So now what I've done is I've just added color equals RRU gray. I haven't put color in our aesthetics. In other words, I haven't done color equals RRU gray, because if I put it in my aesthetics, then I need to have it mapped to a variable name. And that's not what I'm doing. I want everything to be gray, first of all. Okay, you can see now it's gray, which is better. That's a better starting place. Now what I'm doing though is I'm adding another geom line. And what I'm doing here is I'm saying data equals. So you're probably used to seeing data equals as part of ggplot, but you can actually add it to any geom as well. What I'm going to do is I put my gray background lines. I've made everything gray, but now I'm going to add that highlight school on top of it so that we can really highlight a single school. So I'm doing data equals highlight school. And you know what? I need to actually flip over here because I don't actually have that highlight school here. So I'll just make a new code chunk, run that. So you can see now I have highlight school. Inherit.aes, what that does is instead of typing out this aesthetic mapping here, I just say inherit AES. So in other words, use the same aesthetic properties as up here. Okay? And now I'm saying for this one, color equals RRU orange. So now when I run this, you can see I have Vestal Elementary School highlighted in orange with a big growth there. Okay? There's the same plot. So what I want you to do is I want you to identify one school district that has had a lot of growth in its Hispanic Latino population from 2017-2018 to 2018-2019. You can do that by just eyeballing it, or you can use Pivot Wider or some other way. There are multiple ways to figure out what districts that might be or district that might be. Create a new data frame called Highlight District. Only include that school. That should say district. Just knit this again. Okay. Refresh this. All right. For your turn, I want you to identify one school district that has had a lot of growth in its Hispanic Latino population from 2017-2018 to 2018-2019. Create a new data frame called Highlight District and only include this district in that data frame. Then I want you to use this Highlight District data frame to create a new geom line layer on top of the other data. And make sure that this new layer is a bright color and that all other layers are some type of light gray. All right, let me record the solutions. And I will say, I think this is actually the last lesson I'm going to do today. Actually, I have a bunch of other pending deadlines, so I'm going to probably go work on those. Okay. Okay, just going to let this run and then I'll do that. Okay. All right, here, sorry, I'm starting again. Here's where we ended up last time. We had this chart here. So let me first of all figure out kind of which district I want to highlight. And I'm going to actually put this up above because I need to make that data frame before, because then I'm going to edit this here. Instead of making a new code chunk, I'll just edit what I've already got. So let me start with enrollment by race ethnicity. I'm going to pivot wider. ID calls equals, let me just open this up and take a look. So I think I can just do it with district because I don't think there are any duplicate district names. In other words, I don't have to do district and district ID. So I will do names from equals year, values from equals, what is it called, percent of total at school. All right, let me take a look at that. Oh, looks like I am getting, okay, so the reason it's giving me this output here, must not be some, or there must be some duplicate. So let me run it with district and district ID. There we go. No. Oh, you know what it is? It's because I have multiple race ethnicity groups. I forgot to filter here. There we go. So now I'm just showing just showing it for Hispanic Latino folks. All right, so now I'll do mutate growth equals, and just as a reminder, I need to do 2018, 2019 minus 2017, 2018. I could run that. You can see now I have this growth here. And then let me just arrange this. I'll arrange this in descending order for growth. So one thing that I'm actually seeing is that, well, first of all, it's showing up in with scientific notation, which actually doesn't really matter. Wait, what is going on? I'm just confused why it's showing up this in with scientific notation. What is that? Hold on one second. Just copy this in. Yeah. Okay, there we go. So wait, let me run it as if oh, no, I need to rerun it. Okay, hold on. I didn't think about the fact that when folks do this, they are going to actually see this as scientific notation, which is potentially going to confuse them. All right, so when I run this, here's what I end up with. And you can see I actually get my results in scientific notation. If you don't want those, you can enter this. Options scipen equals 999. That will turn off scientific notation. So if I run that line and now run this here, you can see I get growth in a way that I expect. Okay. All right, so it looks like Douglas ESD had the highest growth. I will say, if you are very eagle-eyed and you look back at some of these districts, the numbers are very small. So for example, Douglas ESD 2017-2018 had 0 Hispanic Latino students. They had 3 in 2018-2019, which is 13.6%. Because this is not a course in in statistics, it's how to use R. I'm going to ignore that for now, but I do want you to know that I'm aware of that, and I don't want to have you interpret this as me giving you license to do inappropriate work. But for our purposes, I really just want us to focus on how to make these visualizations. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, I will make a highlight district, and I'll start with enrollment by race ethnicity, and then I'll filter so that district equals Douglas ESD. Okay, I could open up my highlight district and you can see I've got that there. And actually, because I am only focusing on Hispanic Latino folks, I'm going to add that line in there. So when I get that data, it's going to mirror what I'm doing with this line chart here. Okay, so just as a reminder, here is what I did before. So I am going to, first of all, change the color. A number of ways you could do this. You could find a hex value. You could also just type light gray. That'll give you a nice light gray. Well, I'll come back to that in a second. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do gonline, and we're going to do data equals highlight district. I'm also now going to add inherit AES equals true, so it'll just use the same aesthetic properties. And I'll do color equals, just make it blue. Okay, so you can see now I've shown Douglas ESD shown a huge growth there. Okay. The one thing I was going to suggest before that you might consider doing, if you have this overplotting, in other words, there's too many lines you can't really see very much, is you can decrease the opacity so that the lines are a bit more visible. So if I do that, they become a bit more visible. There's still a degree of overplotting there, of course, but it makes it a little more legible. It doesn't really matter here because really we just want to show kind of the overall pattern and how Douglas ESD, for example, really bucks the norm. All right. All right, folks who are watching live, thank you for joining. I am going to turn off the screen. I'll be back next week, Monday, and I'll go through some decluttering, removing axis titles, talking about themes, etc. Hope you can join me then.